Now, we've drawn sales comparisons for the Switch for a while now. Throughout the year, we've pretty much talked about it compared to things like the PS4, the Xbox One, the 3DS. I've even seen people compare it to things like the Super Nintendo and the DS. But the one system that really hasn't come up much until now is the PS2. Now, the PS2 was an extraordinary system when it came to sales. Massive, massive sales. Things we'll probably never really see again in the home console market, despite the PS4 selling well. I don't think it'll ever get to the 158 million systems that the PS2 sold, because, again, I think that was an anomaly. The DS at least got very close, or around there, but that's a handheld system. But now we could talk about the Switch against the PS2, because at least in Japan, it looks like the Switch is going to end up passing the PS2 in the same time frame. So the PS2 actually launched a day after the Switch in terms of the calendar. March 4th it launched in Japan for the PS2, and of course the Switch launched March 3rd, so a day prior. So this is very easy to track since they're right there, one and one. So the PS2 ended up selling just over 3 million units, and based on Famitsu, or even if you want to use media crates like I use, but we'll say Famitsu for the basis of this, they're about 100,000, 80,000 off between media crate and Famitsu. Either way, the Switch is roughly 100, 150,000 units away from the PS2's overall first 10-month sales, which is huge because the PS2, obviously very successful in Japan, ended up getting just over 21 million units sold, something that I think the Switch will end up actually eclipsing when it's all said and done, because I do think the Switch is going to operate on an upward slope for a little while, probably until maybe its midway point, and then it'll start to slope back down as everyone owns one. But 21 million Switches is not out of the picture. In fact, I think the Switch is going to sell roughly what the 3DS has sold at this point, which of course the 3DS has passed the PS2 a little while ago, I think last year, sitting somewhere around 23 million right now. But the Switch looks to be passing that. It's currently roughly 2.9.5 million right now from Famitsu, and this week coming up, the sales week, you're going to see a big number. We have people in Japan taking pictures of stock, showing it off, and saying that the Switch is everywhere and it's leaving stores at a rapid pace. We did see a big number, roughly 230 to 250,000, again, depending on the source. I think we're going to see anywhere from 300 to 350,000 units in this next report, which will, of course, put it over that PS2 mark, and it will be right up against the Wii U's lifetime sales in the Switch's first 10 months. The Switch will, I'm going to tell you guys now, the Switch will pass the Wii U's lifetime sales in its first 10 months. We'll be going into 2018, January 1st, with the Switch as Nintendo's best-selling system between the Wii U and the Switch in Japan, and probably the fastest-selling system that they've seen since the DS even. I think it'll actually do better than most of those things. Again, I think it will actually outsell the 3DS when it's all said and done in Japan. And I think it'll also outsell the PS2 at this point. It's pretty clear Japan loves this system. It obviously caters to the handheld market first in Japan, and that's a good thing because that's who you want to sell to. I think Nintendo is still going to continue to work to convince the Western audience that this is a home console as well and not just a handheld. Japan doesn't care. They want it to be a handheld. That's what they absolutely want. But it's nice to have it, obviously, as something you can just leave in the dock if you never want to use it as a handheld and it's a home console. I think certain games right now do show the power disparity between the two modes. Something like Xenoblade, even Mario. Mario also shows it if you really look at it. So I think they also need to work on the West with some third parties. As we've talked about, there are no issues with sales in Japan at this point with Nintendo. They are off and running. Keep in mind, there's no Smash Bros. There's no Animal Crossing over here yet, and Fire Emblem's still coming out sometime this year along with Pokemon. Pokemon is not even on the system yet. When Pokemon shows up, I think that's when they're going to get that massive spike into that kind of that bell curve on the way up. It's going to be Pokemon. Pokemon is going to make people lose their minds in Japan, especially if they do take this path that I think they're going to take, where it's going to really differentiate this new version on the Switch from the old versions. People will go out and buy it just to see. People like me who have not played Pokemon since Gold and Silver will go out and buy it for the Switch because I want to see what this new setup is, if they are using something like Unreal or just really their own custom engine that takes advantage of the Switch's really graphical features, and they leave that 240p. I know people like the 3DS. They leave that very low resolution screen behind, low frame rate, on the newer Pokemon, as people will complain they turn off 3D and everything. But go to the Switch and show us what the world of Pokemon looks like, and sell millions of Switches in 1 month because of Pokemon. it could get out of control. Guys, let me know what you think. Is the Switch going to outsell something like the PS2 in Japan? I don't think it'll do it worldwide because I don't think Europe will get enough behind the Switch to push it there. But I do think it'll do really well in the US for MPDs, and I think it'll do extraordinarily well in Japan. I think it will end up outselling both the 3DS and the PS2 when it's all said and done in its lifespan, as long as they can get 6 years out of this system. If they can't, but they keep it all in the same family, it won't matter. Like if it's a Switch Pro, but they still run the same games, they'll count that as they do with the new 3DS XL. But I need to know what you guys think. Is the Switch going to take off to the point where it is blowing past the PS2, it's blowing past the 3DS? I do, but I need to hear what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.